Okay, so let's have a conversation about NVIDIA right now, because last time I saw the interview and I noticed that NVIDIA actually, this whole thing of like how chips are created, what they actually do, how it's helping tech to evolve, it was really interesting and I wanted to circle back to it and learn more about NVIDIA's chips and how it's actually helping us grow in the field of AI and move ahead. He mentioned it's like a time machine because it's giving us a view of what could happen in next 10 years right now, because earlier the speed at which computing was done was slow, but because the help of new GPUs hardware, that time is reduced. What is going to be possible in future, we can see that right now, and that's really interesting, on which I want to dive deeper. Yes, so this time I want this conversation to go to the hardware which is facilitating the research and development in the field of AI, everything that's happening in NVIDIA, and why actually these hardwares are important. I want to go deep down into that.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, that's a great question.
It's like you want to get down to the nitty-gritty, huh?
Fascinating here is how hardware and AI are so intertwined.
Yeah, it's not just about the algorithms.
It's the physical stuff, the chips.
The actual machinery doing the work.
Exactly. And you're right, NVIDIA is a huge player here.
So let's dive into it.
We can definitely explore the importance of this hardware.
And how it's enabling all this crazy AI development.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Let's do it.
one thing that really stands out when you look at this hardware is how it came from video games.
Oh, wow, okay.
The need for better graphics in the 90s drove innovation.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, talked about this. He said the GPUs were like a time machine.
How's that?
They allowed scientists to do their life's work in their lifetime.
That's so cool.
It's because they could do calculations much faster.
So the hardware actually speeds up time.
Well, not really, but it makes research happen faster.
I see, so it makes it all possible.
Exactly. And if
Yeah.
you look at that video you sent, he talks about designing these chips.
He was talking about pushing the physical limits of making things at nanometer scale.
What's fascinating here is how they think about what's physically possible.
So it's like an engineering puzzle too, right?
Absolutely. And then these superpowered GPUs came out.
For gaming, but also for AI.
Right. The same tech that powers video games can train AIs.
So gaming hardware helped discover AI.
In a way, yeah. And the tech continued to advance AI.
It's crazy how one thing leads to another.
Before we move to NVIDIA versus Google, I just want to touch on this point where I saw this video on internet where they were showing how they are trying to make a smiley face with paintballs, and it's showing a sequential process. But on the other hand, they are comparing it to a way where they are directly throwing paintball to create a Mona Lisa painting. I want to discuss about that also.
That's a fantastic way to visualize the difference. It really highlights the power of parallel processing.
Okay, let's unpack this. You're talking about that Mythbusters video with the paintball robots, right?
Exactly. That video perfectly illustrates how GPUs work.
So it's not just about speed, but the way it processes information.
Yes, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, we see how it applies to AI.
So the paintballs in the video represent AI calculations.
In a simplified way, yes. One robot shooting paintballs one at a time, that's sequential.
Like a CPU processing one thing at a time, right?
Exactly. And the other robot shooting all at once, that's parallel.
So a GPU tackles many calculations simultaneously.
Right. It's the key to training those big AI models efficiently.
So this whole hardware conversation is really about this.
Yes, it's about how the hardware actually works to enable all of this.
It seems like you want to zoom in on this idea of how hardware facilitates AI.
And not just jump to the competition, which was our next point.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is this interplay of software and hardware.
It's the whole picture that matters, right?
Yeah, and you're right to focus on this point before we move forward.
Okay, so before we discuss the competition between NVIDIA and Google, let's emphasize the importance of this specific hardware, like what we just talked about.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, think about the specialization of this hardware.
Like, it's not just any computer chip.
No, we need super powerful GPUs and TPUs for AI work.
It's a real investment in physical machinery.
And the thing is, this is a huge shift for the tech industry.
Yeah, it's a shift that's reshaping how we think about computing itself.
So it's not just software, but the physical tools to make it happen.
Exactly, and that's why all the competition is happening on this hardware level.
So it's not just about the algorithms, but the tools too.
Right, and that brings us to thinking about Google versus NVIDIA.
Okay, and they're competing approaches to hardware.
Yeah, NVIDIA is all about GPUs, which are very general purpose.
And Google's pushing their TPUs.
Exactly, tensor processing units. They're designed specifically for machine learning.
So more specialized.
Yeah, and that creates a big difference in how they approach things.
So what does this mean for AI development?
Well, Google uses TPUs in their data centers.
Like Waymo with its self-driving cars.
Exactly, and they use it to train their models.
It's all about high-performance AI inference.
What's fascinating is that Google can improve their tech this way.
It helps them compete in cloud markets, right?
Yes, Pichai even says the investment in AI is because of search,
I remember him saying that in the interviews.
and it helps them compete with Amazon and Microsoft.
Okay, that makes sense. That was a lot to unpack.
Yeah, but that was a great way to explore the details of the hardware behind AI.
This really puts it all in perspective, and I'm glad we touched on this in more detail before moving on.
Indeed, it's essential to see the importance of the hardware in all of this.
Exactly, and that helps us really appreciate the innovation happening.
Yes, and that brings us to the end of our deep dive today.
Thanks for joining us. It's always great to hear your thoughts.
Thank you. So that was discussion about hardware and AI. Thanks for joining in. This is Nikhil. You are watching Boulder Web. Maybe you are watching Nikhil the Creator. Feel free to subscribe to see more such interesting conversation where I'll be exploring more such exciting topics with the help of AI and understand deeply and have a conversation around it, which is much needed.